EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, the number one Eagles morning show for you all, 8 to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Talking about Landon Dickerson Day before we get on. Probably a little bit too early to be Landon Dickerson Day, but here we are. Landon Dickerson Day.
It is an unexpected Landon Dickerson Day for me, Johnny Mac. I speculated with who would be the next on the list. I even put him on the thumbnail because I'm like, this has got to be a shoo-in. It's got to be a shoo-in. And I was wrong, Johnny Mac, but we'll get into that. It's good to see everybody in here in the chat right now. I appreciate everybody watching. If you're listening right now, I appreciate it. Hit the like button for us. Drop your comments down below. We'll get to a couple of them as we always do on the show. We appreciate you all for being here. Johnny Mac, let's get right into it, man. The top 25 that we've been running along. You kind of just teased where you were going, John, but we are at number 8 on the list. Yesterday, we had Devontae Smith at number 9, Quinyon Mitchell at number 10, Zach Baldwin at number 11, Cam Jurgens and Dallas Goedert at 12 and 13. That was at the end of last week. We are now down to number 8, and you've tipped the hand, John, on who it is. But who is it, John?
Yeah, when you say Zach 11th, I'm semi incensed by it. Similar, not sort of a mini one with Landon Dickerson at 8. My buddy Ed Cratch is out in Monterey, California. He's vacationing with his family. Hope he's having fun watching whales. But I, I'm above board. I said, full disclosure, I ripped you for putting Zach Baldwin so low on your list. Ed'll be on when he gets back to talk about it. But he did tell me he gave more of the credit to Vic Fangio. And part of that is true in that, would he have turned into what he turned into in any other environment? Probably not. But two things collided, and that was opportunity. Nobody was going to give this guy an opportunity, and the Eagles did because they didn't have any linebackers at the time, which is kind of hilarious now because everybody thinks they have the best linebacker room in the NFL. Meeting Vic Fangio, who's tremendously good at his job, and especially linebackers. Linebackers are sort of his expertise as a coach. So I do agree with that part of it, but once the player gets that opportunity and does what he does with that opportunity, it doesn't really matter to me if teams like the Saints are dumb and don't give him a chance. I mean, it's not necessarily his fault. So I think the player took the baton, but that's Zach Baldwin. Now, the second one who's too low on the list, in my opinion, is Landon Dickerson coming in at number 8. And, I just have this disconnect with giving so much to the rookies. We still haven't brought up Cooper DeJean, who's a phenomenal player. Anybody who listens, I've been talking about Cooper DeJean from day one, and the weird kind of doubt he has from some people, a group of the fan base who didn't believe that he was athletic, that I think now they realize, hey, you know what? He's pretty athletic. And he's a heck of a player, and so is Quinyon Mitchell. But they were rookies last year. They were tremendous rookies. Tremendous. Hit the ground running. Great futures. Great upsides. But then you have Landon Dickerson, who's made the Pro Bowl 3 consecutive seasons, and deservedly so. He's not like a 6th alternate. And in my opinion, and I may be biased because I get to cover him all the time, but I think he's the best guard in football. And I also think he is the lead bully on the team that bullies everybody. He is the biggest, most physical, strongest. He probably I I don't want to say that because Landon's a good dude, but he probably intimidated some people in high school. He is just a big freaking bully. And I mean that in the best sense possible. I don't mean he's actually going out there and bullying people. I mean, on the football field, he just beats people up. And, I do have concern over the knee injuries. He got hurt again last year. And part of the concerns is he's also the toughest guy on the team. And that's tough to measure, but he plays through everything. Everything. To the point where he had that injury, and he doesn't like to talk about it, and he doesn't have to talk about it in the offseason, unfortunately. But, you don't have to talk about injuries. But he said he was going to have surgery. I assume he had surgery. I haven't seen anybody confirm that. I haven't been able to confirm that. So please point me if somebody has. And he's right out there in spring work. He's not taking time off, which I think the Eagles should, veer back on him a little bit for his own good, because he tore his ACL at Florida State. He tore an ACL again at Alabama, famously. That's why it was second round pick. He tore his ACL in the SEC championship game and was back to take the final snap when they won the national championship. Now, it was ceremonial, but still out there. And the guy was doing backflips at his size early on. I mean, he's an amazing player. And I know people but they don't, Jason Kelce kind of broke that wall. But for most offensive linemen, they don't get the hype of the skill position players. Let's be honest. But
no, they don't. They don't. And you're right. I agree with you on Landon. I think 8 is a little low for my boy Landon Dickerson, especially when you bring up that Cooper DeJean has not been mentioned yet. But look, John, this shows you how good this team is, honestly. But what do you think of Landon coming into this year? Obviously, I know you just mentioned he played a very versatile player. He played what was center in the NFC title game, right? With the
he started, didn't
yeah.
finish because he hurt his knee,
right? Didn't finish
pretty significantly, but played. He actually sat out the second half. Cam Jurgens, so it was a story of the toughness of both of them,
right? Really was.
But then he played in the Super Bowl. And he didn't play that well. Neither did Cam, believe it or not, in the Super Bowl, at least but they shouldn't have been playing, but they both played. And that's the kind of player he is. But and like I said, a little bit concerning because he had the 2 torn ACLs in college. And I always joke he's not only the Eagles' best left guard, maybe the best left guard in the NFL. He's their best center, and their center's pretty good. Because he was an All-American center at Alabama, as you know, and won the Remington Trophy as the nation's best center, and was originally drafted to be one of the heir apparents. The first one they drafted was Isaac Seumalo, amazingly, to replace Jason Kelce. Then it was Landon Dickerson. And then, Isaac became so good at guard. They said, let's scratch that. They drafted Landon. He became so good at guard. Let's scratch that. And they drafted Cam, who finally took over for Jason Kelce. And even after 2 years where he had to play guard from one of them. So that's how amazing Jason Kelce's career has been. But, I mean, he is so important. And the tush push, which everybody loves. More than anything, the most important player on this team to the tush push is Landon Dickerson. Now, I would argue Kelce when he was here because he would steal some
so you need 1 yard. Kelce was taking like half of it.
Yeah. But post Kelce, he's the most important player when it comes to the tush push, and so big, so strong, so physical, and from a football perspective, and again, I don't want to play it up, but I'm talking from a football perspective. Lane's a bully. Jordan Mailata is a bully. Mekhi Becton certainly was. But the king bully is Landon Dickerson.
Yeah. Reminds me of his pregame speeches. I think even Johnny Mack would like those. I choose violence. I love the Landon Dickerson pregame speeches. But great player, John. A lot of injury. He had some injuries last year. He obviously coming out of Alabama, he had some injuries to the knees. Do you have any concerns about that, or do you think overall? I mean, he's been pretty healthy since he's been in Philly. It's not like he's missing that many games every year, but it is something that's lingering. And when you're a big boy like Landon is, it's something you think about. How much do you? How much concern does that do you have on the knee injuries and just how banged up Landon has been?
Yeah, a little bit. As I mentioned before, yeah, I mean, 2 ACLs in college, hurt his knee again, and he tends to play through stuff. There's been little things he's hurt as well, and he might not even be on the injury report. We talked about that with Kelsey. So a little bit concerning because of his style of play as well. And he's going to fight through stuff. And if you fight through stuff, you might injure yourself more. It's just his nature. He's going to fight through it. So a little bit, but he is 26. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys playing until 36. Because he is 330 plus pounds. He is 6'6", and that ain't good on the legs. But right now he's in the prime of his career, as he said last time I talked to him. They make doctors to fix things. So that's his mentality. And yeah, he's just, and that's the Eagles took a shot on him. I mean, this is the guy, he got picked 37th, which is pretty damn high. Fifth round, basically the fifth pick in the second round, or sixth pick, whatever. But he would have been a first round pick if he didn't tear his ACL the second. So they got that kind of talent and took the shot, and it's worked out. And even if it goes off the rails as early as this season, he's already been worth it 100 times over. Hasn't been the only thing, he hasn't been named All-Pro yet, which I think is kind of.
Who was the All-Pro guards last year that he didn't get it?
I have to look it up. I know Quinn Miners in Denver was one. He's very good. I forget.
Is he better than Landon?
I would say he's the one closest, but I don't get to see him every day. I mean, like I said, I think Landon, but I get to see him every day. I'm sure Joe Thuney was the other one. And he's been great for a long time. But I'd have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think he's the best guard in football. Again, he's in the conversation. Quentin Nelson's. Yeah, Joe Thuney. Quentin Nelson's in that category, but he's aging a little bit. He was great when he was younger, man. Oof. That guy was offensive line porn. That's how they described him in the NFL.
Yeah, no, Quentin Nelson is definitely legit.
So he was, but he's getting a little bit older. Time moves on. Same thing with Thuney. Thuney's got the big reputation, but he's getting older. And I'm not going to kill him for the Super Bowl because he's playing out of position, and Josh Sweat owned him, but he's not a left tackle. He's only forced because Kansas City couldn't find a left tackle. So, but he's on that very short list, and the only ones I put it on, Chris Lindstrom's very good too in Atlanta. So you have Lindstrom, you have Miners, Quentin Nelson, Joe Thuney, Landon Dickerson. Those are probably top 5. If you ask me, I'd put Landon first, but nobody's, and I do get a vote. I voted for him. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't make at least second team All-Pro. But that's neither here. He's still young, and sometimes that's a reputation thing. Again, Nelson and Thuney have the reputations, especially on the offensive line. People kind of default to reputations. But picking hairs, he's very good. And he's very important to this team and what they try to do.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's get to some super chats here. Appreciate the 2 super chats today. Jason A-Team checks in on Dickerson. He says, watching Dickerson play reminds me of the old days, just nasty and violent. I don't think there was a better guard in football, and he was a center. Well, that's a good sentiment right there, man. You're right. It is kind of old school, though, isn't it, Johnny Mac, the way he plays the game?
Yeah. That's a good thing when you talk about nasty, violent. It's not a good thing on public, but it's
especially for a running football team.
Yeah. And for an offensive lineman. So, yeah, he's an old school guy.
God, he's like a sweetheart off the field, man. Have you ever watched his Instagram account with his wife?
Dude. Great dude off the field.
He's got this Instagram account with his wife. It's called Dickerson DIY. So he does like DIY stuff around the house, and great. God bless him. The guy makes all the money in the world, but if he wants to fix something in his house, he does it himself, and I respect it. I love watching that shit. I like DIY work, so I love watching him. Very entertaining. Him and his wife DIYing up their house, fixing up their closets and their lawn. He's a wholesome dude, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, he's a North Carolina guy. He's, he's sort of more southernish, a country guy.
Big country.
I remember when he got his contract, which is like $84 million, 4 years, $84 million. He got asked a goofy TV question. Well, what are you going to buy first? And he said a lawnmower. Damn, he bought a lawnmower.
Yeah, zero-turn lawnmower, man. Those are big in that world.
Yeah.
Those are for that precision cut, John, where you can make like the lines in your lawn.
Yeah.
You guys love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great dude. But, he's also, if you don't know him, he's pretty damn intimidating too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just, he's 6'6", 330, whatever, like I said. And he's, people used to say that about Linval Joseph, and now I hear it a lot about Landon. The NFL is basically, especially offensive line, it's basically a league of very strong people. And when you're considered to be amongst the strongest, that's saying something.
It's a good way to put it.
And he pushes people around.
No doubt. D. Hughes checks in. What's up, D. Hughes? He says, was watching the show late yesterday. Fun fact, Stan got popularized from the Eminem song Stan about a fan that was overly obsessive. Yeah, I had a complete brain fart on that yesterday, D. Hughes. I actually know that song very well. That's one of the one that has the Dido thank you as sampled in it. Like, you know that song at all?
Yeah, I'm sure I do. I don't, yeah.
It is
I
funny.
I like Eminem. But, it's like a kid's term. I don't know. Is Pumper a kid?
It is kind of a kid's term, but that is where it began. Eminem wrote a song about Stan, and it was his biggest fan, and he was like, it turned into like 3 verses, and by the end, it turns out that the lunatic fan is like a psychopath, kind of, is kind of how I would put it. But it's pretty funny. It's a good song.
Well, Robert De Niro did a movie about being an obsessive fan long before the Eminem song.
I might have to check that one out.
Wasn't that good? You don't need to check it out.
All right, yeah. If I got plenty of other
not one of his best, I would say, but he was the obsessive fan. Yeah, goofy term, violation, also a goofy term.
That thank you though from Dido or whatever, however you pronounce her name, is stuck in my head. That's a good. I like that little phrase. Thank you, D. Hughes. Appreciate that, John. A couple more questions for you on Landon Dickerson. What is his ceiling? Do you think? I mean, is it just
First
how
team
long?
I think he's already hit. Yeah, he's already hit his ceiling. Yeah. I mean, just the accolades of being a first team All Pro, which to me should have already been. He's already. Again, if you're top 5 in your position, and he's clearly top 5, worst case scenario. Can he? I don't know, like Quentin Nelson, because he's a guy I mentioned, like at his height, it's probably the best guard I've ever seen in the modern era, at least. I don't think he's quite that. But again, that's like, to me, it's almost like Aaron Donald, like Quentin Nelson in his prime, like as an offensive lineman. So, I don't think it's quite that high, but I think it's right underneath. And I haven't seen Quinn Miners enough. I know people rave about him, so I'm sure he's tremendous. But like I said, if you're in the conversation, that's all it means. You're that's good enough as far as I'm concerned, because people are always going to have favorite flavors and things like that.
Yeah, no doubt. John, last year with the big running game, obviously, how big of a part of that was Landon? You talk about how dominant or how
well, I mean, all you have to do is ask Saquon. I mean, he constantly. I mean,
yeah, right.
All you have to do is look at Saquon's career. I mean, he was really good in with New York, but he was just like a really good. You see a bunch of good running backs. That's what he was, and he gets here. It's not only Landon; it's the entire group, but it's historic. And then you look at non-Saquon level players. Again, the Eagles have had a Pro Bowl running back. Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift. Who are what are they? And then you saw the difference when you had Saquon was putting up Miles Sanders like numbers with the Giants, and then he gets here, and I'm saying Miles went his best year in Philadelphia, and he gets here and he just takes off to being what people thought he would be coming out of Penn State. Even more so. I mean, nobody was saying, "Hey, he's gonna set the all-time rushing record." Because you never put those expectations on anybody, or you shouldn't. So, the offensive line. I've said it 100 times. It's the best room in the NFL overall, any position. It's certainly the best group here by that, and it's one of the best groups ever put together. It 20, 30 years from now, I'll probably be dead, but you guys hopefully will be still talking NFL football. This will be regarded as one of the great offensive lines of all time. This stretch with Stoutland. People have gotten spoiled. Boy, if you think about the Buddy Ryan days and the offensive lines they had, I mean, the level of all pros and Pro Bowls in the history of this franchise was minute until Stoutland got here. Now it's every year. Twice in the past few years, they've had every single guy on the offensive line has been either all pro, Pro Bowl, or Pro Bowl alternate. All 5.
It's crazy.
It is. It's one of the best offensive lines ever. Ever.
Is Jeff Stoutland the best offensive line coach ever?
Well, he's in there. He just got honored. The PFWA just honored him for lifetime achievement. He won the Paul Dr. Z Award, is what it's called, lifetime achievement for assistant coaches. So he's already got that award. 12 consecutive years he's had at least one Pro Bowl player, which has never happened before. So again, he's in the conversation, definitely. There's some other great ones, but and right now, if you talk about today, if you talk about best assistant coaches, position coaches, I'm not even talking about best offensive line coach. He'd get a lot of votes for best assistant position coach, regardless of position. And that's why everybody's so high on, generally every year. And it's not. I mean, he's had failures. Everybody does. You can't, but everybody gets a little bit better. Brett Johnson's the guy who talked about it best.
Yeah. It's a good example.
I don't know if you heard Fred talk about when he got here. He was just miserable, and he was like, he admitted he was in a dark place, and thought he was treated unfairly in other places. And he got here, and he was on the scout team, and Stoutland wouldn't give up. He kept, coaching him hard, and he's like, I'm just holding the bag. Leave me alone. He just wanted to pick up his check. And to your point, I think you were talking yesterday, can Stoutland put enough effort into all the guys lower? He does. He doesn't stop. He coaches them like they're Lane Johnson. And Fred, gives them all the credit in the world for not giving up on him and getting him to the point where he can be a capable swing tackle in this league. And, obviously Mekhi Becton came here to work with him. Holland Pierce is a guy. I'm like, and, Zach Berman brought that up to me. We were talking because he was listening to the show, and he told me he didn't agree with my Holland Pierce take, which at the time was, if I'm Holland Pierce's agent, who's the undrafted kid from Rutgers, 6'8", 344, another huge kid, I said basically I'd steer him somewhere else because, the Eagles have Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. They signed Kendall Lamb. They signed Matt Pryor. They drafted Miles Hinton. They drafted Cameron Williams, all tackles. That doesn't even bring up the guys who can play tackle on the pinch, like Brett Toth and Kenyon Green and all those guys. All I said was that I would have steered them to a place that needed tackles. Now, from the standpoint, but I also said, which I don't think Zach heard that part, was that, maybe he just wants to work with Stoutland and that'll help him on his next opportunity, wherever that might be. But the numbers game is just so brutal for him here. And the Eagles will try to keep him on the practice squad. If he's here, Stoutland wants to work with him. So if he gets through waivers, they'll put him on the practice squad. But yeah, that's how well regarded just being around Stoutland can be for a player's career. But there's always Andre Dillard's. Nobody's perfect. And if you don't have the desire to get better, you're not going to get better. But he's probably one of those guys, and Bick's in that category as well. The Eagles have a lot of good assistants. He's going to get you to where he's going to make you better. Wherever your ceiling is, wherever you are in your career, he's going to make you a little bit better.
No doubt. Dank Yang Gang checking in. What's up, Dank? He says, NFL Films did a video on Stout and how important his wife is to the player. She convinced him to stay. I saw that posted. I never watched that though. I got to watch that.
Yeah, he was out the door back to Alabama. He was going back to Alabama after Doug got fired, to the point where who's the great college football reporter? Boy, I'm forgetting his name. Feldman, I believe. Anyway, he was reporting that he was going. He rarely gets stuff. He was out the door. And Allison Stoutland said, yeah, I don't want to move. And so, yeah, she deserves a lot of credit for keeping Stout. And obviously, it's one of those things where, Nick Sirianni didn't have a history with him, but you'd be goofy to not want him to be your offensive line coach. So he had no problem with it. But yeah, if it wasn't for his wife, he probably would have went back to Alabama. Because you get loyal, and he was at the time, he was loyal to Doug and what they had accomplished. And was probably a little upset, but people get over it. It's a very nomadic profession. So you know, I follow Gunter Brewer on X still. For those who remember Gunter, he was here as the wide receivers coach for only one season. Great dude. Coached Randy Moss at Marshall back in the day, and now he's back at Marshall. And I said, well, that's interesting. And I saw on social media. And then it made me look up Gunter's career, and boy, man, this talks about a coaching career, right? He was at the first time he was at Marshall, my first tangent of the day was Randy Moss time. So 96 to 99. That's when he was at Marshall. Then he went to North Carolina, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, back to North Carolina. Then 2018, he got the Eagles wide receiver job, which at the time was not a great job because they didn't have any wide receivers. And they went in a different direction. And he went back to college to Louisville. Then he went to Maryland. Then he went to Virginia Tech. And now he's back at Marshall. That's the life of an assistant.
Yeah, it's crazy,
coaching.
man. Coaching is you really got to be committed to it, man. It's tough.
Yeah. Certainly tough on families and things like that. But, obviously, if you're a football lifer, you kind of love the game. And,
Right.
if you are married or something like that, it's, the wives. And you hear Nick Sirianni talk about his wife, and a bunch of guys talk about their wives because they do so much work with kids and stuff like that because you're, working 18-hour days or whatever. I blame Dick Vermeil for that.
How so?
Because Dick was the first one where it was made into a thing. He sleep in his office and when he was here. And then it became almost like a badge of honor. And I always thought it's stupid. There's rules, there's federal laws that prohibit like truck drivers from driving more than they should because it's not good for you. How is working 20 hours a day? How is it making you more effective? Because you're probably dead tired by the end of
depends
it.
Depends who you are, depends what your goals are, I guess. I mean, or what your motives are.
But I mean, guys like Steve Spurrier kind of scoffed at it. He was a great college coach. He'd be out going golfing by 4:00. There's a balance. And I think, and nowadays it's kind of funny, even more funny, because then you could actually do stuff in the Dick Vermeil years. When you have 6 preseason games and 2-a-days and
Yeah, right.
all that stuff. And now everything's so limited. So I think it's there's a better balance. And some things are just common sense. I always bring up my worst day in football. Now I'm off to another tangent, which is the day that Corey Stringer collapsed and ultimately passed away.
Yeah, that was.
Now, I say this because I'm old and people don't even believe me. And I'm telling you, it is true. They didn't let us as reporters take water on the field. Now, these are training camp days. These are days when there's still 2-a-days. They scaled back a little bit to day, second would be special teams, but a lot of hard work, a lot of 2.5-hour practices, 3-hour practice. It was brutal. And that's just standing there. And now when I was much younger. And the players, there was it was looked down if you wanted to get water. You had to tough it out. Think about how stupid that is.
It is I mean, it's one thing to have a good work ethic, but water, that's health. I mean, you need nutrients in your body. You need the things your body needs to be able to work.
Sleep is health as well. You talk to every doctor now, and that's why I bring up Chip Kelly. I'm on 70 different tangents, but it's the off season. The one thing I loved about Chip Kelly is and there were a lot of bad, but there was a lot of good. And some of the sports science stuff and the sleep monitors and stuff like that, the Eagles still preach that stuff. They're not going to put sleep monitor, but they're like 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours.
8 hours is a lot. How much do you sleep? Do you know?
God,
I wear this Whoop. I love this Whoop band. So it kind of gives me the
five,
date
6
on that.
hours. But I'm not an athlete. Athletes are trying for peak performance.
Right. Big difference there. Yep.
So, sleep monitors and all that stuff, hydration, checking the piss, making sure you're hydrated properly, all that kind of stuff. He's way ahead of the curve when it came to that. Now everybody does it, and the Eagles have continued to do it. And he deserves credit for that. He probably will never get it. But I only bring that up to point out there's a lot of stuff that seems like common sense after the fact. Gee, when we're doing it, that's number one with like they did that for so many years. It's like, what? How stupid is that?
Right. Do you think there's anything that goes on right now that we'll talk about in the future like this?
Well, yeah, but coaches wearing the I work 18 hours as a badge of honor. Like, what? Are you good? Are you innovative? Are you better than? Then you can go golfing, as far as I'm concerned. If you're just sitting there to prove to me, like you're George Costanza, and you leave your car in the parking lot, so they think you're the first guy in and the last guy to leave.
Well, I think there is still something to be said about work ethic, but I understand where you're going in terms of a balance and the things that actually matter in terms of just, versus just logging 18 hours because you feel like you have to. I mean, shit, I've logged plenty of those days in my life just doing JAKIB the last 5 years. Doesn't mean it was the right use of my time, but
you're logging 18 hours to do something. I'm saying to be productive. If you're doing it just as a badge of honor, like every NFL coach, not every, there's guys with reputations, like I said, and even Doug would leave, to go golf, and some people would criticize him for that. Later in the day, it's like the first coach to win a damn Super Bowl. You can criticize them all you want, but yeah, it's like it almost for a while there, it became a part of the job description. And I just think it's silly. And guys become alcoholics and get divorced. It's like, you want a good employee, a productive employee? How about not making him alcoholic? Because his wife's bitching at him because he's always sleeping at the office. Things like that, which I think is common sense, but common sense is not so common.
No, it is not. Good stuff there. Good conversation. Kimberly Sirico checking in. What's up, Kimberly? Good to see you in here. She says, I was born in Brooklyn and grew up in Staten Island. Howie was born in Brooklyn and Stout grew up in Staten Island. Have a great day, my football family. There you go, Kimberly. There's your connection to the two big people in the Eagles organization.
Yeah, Howie grew up a big Jets fan. Yeah, for those who don't know.
Yeah, didn't he try to get a job there and it didn't work out?
Oh yeah, the Jets could have had Howie. Wouldn't have worked out anyway.
I'm waiting for the Jets to offer Howie like a percentage of the ownership and fleece him out of there.
Yeah,
fleece him out of Philly.
Woody Johnson ain't doing that. Trust me.
Listen, if I'm an owner, would you give Howie 1% of your organization?
Well, would I?
I would.
1%, yeah, maybe I would.
If I'm the Jets, 1 to 2%. That means if my team is worth $10 billion, Howie's walking with $100 million if he sells his equity.
Well, I'm just saying Woody Johnson ain't giving 1% of his team to his closest friend. So,
I know. I'm just saying, if you can bring in the best general manager in football to fix the train wreck that is your football team, I would do it. I don't know. Maybe other people wouldn't do it. I think that's worth the price of admission.
I don't think you have to, number one. I don't think any owner wants to be that. The owner who does that would be the most unpopular owner.
They won't let it because then the owners will. The other owners will step in and say, we're not opening up that can of worms.
Exactly. So, no, it's not going to happen. You don't have to do it. And I think Howie knows by now that the grass isn't always greener. Because he could leave if he wanted to, but why would he want to leave?
Where
Jeffrey
would he go?
Lurie?
I mean, he's at the top right now. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what would be, in theory, what would be?
Well, I'm saying more money. People could blow him out of the water and just there's no salary cap. I mean, again, I don't think the NFL would approve of giving away ownership, but who knows? But just money in general, anybody could offer more money. But I think he's smart enough to know that, look, he's not going to be as successful everywhere. Jeffrey's a big part of it and allowing him to maneuver. And plus, he hates when you say he's on scholarship or he doesn't have to worry about getting fired. But I mean, and that's true. I mean, he already got demoted once. Jeffrey moved on from Joe Banner, who was, he was even closer to at one point. So it's not like he won't move on or he can't move on or it'll be in perpetuity. And certainly if Jeffrey steps down, you have no idea what his son is going to do as the owner. But it's as safe a position as you can have as a general manager in the NFL. That you can say unequivocally, safest GM in the NFL. You go to another situation where you haven't built up this goodwill with the owner just as a money grab, and he doesn't need the money, obviously. Yeah, then you're on the clock like every other schlub.
Yeah, true.
He's too smart to do something like that.
No, yeah. Brian Fleming checking in. What's up, B. Flem? He says, it was how it was, though, in 2002. Water was considered a weakness. I was doing 3 days in August for camp. When Corey died, it was mandatory water breaks.
Yes.
Yeah. Changed a lot.
Yeah. It was considered a weakness. And everybody who played football from high school through the pros knows that now, people today who didn't grow up through it, they kind of laugh and say, that's not true. Oh, it's true.
It's true. It still impacts today. When I was in high school, John, at St. Joe's Prep, and I was a senior, one of my classmates who was not in my grade, he was a couple years younger than me, but he died at St. Joe's Prep football practice. Ryan Gilliard was his name. Rest in peace to him. But I don't think it was the case of they weren't letting him drink water or anything, but it does show you how, being out in the sun all day and grinding like that obviously has.
Oh, yeah.
You do the right things. Yeah.
Even today, every year there are deaths, and especially at the high school level, because you don't have as much, observation and people there to trainers and things like that. Yeah, every year kids die practicing, unfortunately, but and sometimes it's not related. To me, if there's a lot of, when that happens, there's a lot of underlying heart conditions they may have not known about. I'm not talking about those instances because those are, how do you prevent that?
Right.
But when it is related to hydration, that's a big effing problem today. And it should have been back then. But again, common sense is not very common. Like, why would water, when it's 100, and people don't think Minnesota gets hot. It was hot that day, and it was brutal, and it was humid. And you're not allowed to have water. I mean, that's just stupid.
I can't believe that was a thing. You can't have water? What the fuck does me taking a shot of water have to do with it?
Not only can you not have water, you were, as Brian correctly points out, he's not lying, it was considered a weakness. And, Corey was a little bit overweight, so you had that part as well. he's a big offensive lineman, very good player, by the way. And Mike Tyson's good, and Mike Tyson's a great dude. But yeah, I mean, he was ragging him, stuff like that. I mean, like Brandon Graham calls everybody fat boy, and people call Brandon fat. Is it? That's Brandon. He's just trash talking. It's not meant in a. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying, he's just trying to joke around, and that's part of football. Anybody's been around the locker room. There's untoward stuff, especially in this era where everybody's so politically correct. You're going to hear some untoward stuff, and if you can't handle it, you can't handle it. There's a lot of people probably today who can't handle the way it used to be, and that part of it's probably too much. But yeah, the common sense stuff. Boy, where were the doctors? Where were the Where were the sports science people? But yeah, Brian is completely correct in that it was considered a weakness to drink water.
That's not good. Let's move on, Johnny Mac. Get to our first commercial break. Somebody I want to bring up real quick while we're on this note is. I didn't bring it up. I failed to bring it up yesterday, and I apologize for that. But former Eagles Super Bowl champ Brian Braymond is battling a very rare, aggressive cancer, and the quote is, "in the fight of his life." So I think he's undergoing a 12-week treatment in Washington. There's a GoFundMe set up for the very rare form of cancer, but praying for him, John. That was a sad story to read, and I just wanted to bring him up. As a form of recognition on the show, to be able to at least bring it up, let people know about it. If you want to donate to him, there is a GoFundMe. I'm sure it's not a cheap procedure that he's going through, and I'm praying for him and his family, man.
Yeah, heck of a special teams player. One of the Eagles' best special teams players ever, I would say. And that doesn't, it was back in the days where they pretty much signed one or two guys to play special teams specifically, and it worked out. I know J.J. Watt gave like $10,000. Obviously, people can't get what J.J. can give, but, he was a teammate of Brian's in Houston. Yeah, very difficult. Anytime stuff like that happens, but life ain't fair, man. It just isn't.
No, it really isn't sometimes. Praying for Brian Braymond. Hopefully he has a full recovery. We'll keep him in our prayers. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Cancer, man, is an awful thing. Hopefully we can get some humans to cure that. But that's above my pay grade. I am not that guy. I just talk sports with you guys. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button for us. We'll be right back here on Birds 365. I want to talk a little Eagles schedule today. I'm going to look at some of the games. I'm going to talk to Johnny Mac about, what Eagles Cowboys, what jumps out. So we'll talk a little bit about that coming up next here on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand.
Thank you.
We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX. is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, here with you on Birds 365 live 8 to 10 a.m. every Monday through Friday, talking Eagles with you guys all the way up until training camp, through training camp, into the regular season, through the regular season, and hopefully through the Super Bowl once again this year. We will see how it all plays out. John, I do want to talk a little bit about the schedule with you, and we'll go through a couple of the games, but when you hear Eagles Cowboys, let's see how many days until, September 4th, right? 58 days, John, from Eagles Cowboys. And we'll obviously talk about this game a lot more. We don't need to get too in-depth on each single game right now, but what's the most exciting part of that matchup for you?
Well, I think just the rivalry aspect of it, and the history of that rivalry, because I don't think it's nearly as competitive as it has been in the past. So I think that part will stand out, especially on opening day. Banner drop coming off the Super Bowl. I think it'll be an exciting day for the Eagles fans because they'll get to beat their biggest rival. Even though it shouldn't be their biggest rival right now, it should be Washington. That depends on, who's good, who's not good. And the Cowboys are fine, but I think they're mediocre. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's that compelling, but it's the Cowboys. And Eagles fans generally hate the Cowboys.
No doubt about it. You think the Cowboys are going to be better this year? They weren't very good last year.
They have to be better. I mean,
they did stink even when Dak was healthy last year.
Yeah, very small sample size, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
somebody brought that up to me because I was like, well, they're getting Dak back. They're going to be better. And he's like, dude, they sucked with Dak last year. I'm like, all right.
Well, we don't know if they sucked, but he wasn't playing well. That's true. So, yeah. I mean, it's okay to say at his age, you got to see if the regression that started. But you're lying to yourself if you think he's not better than Cooper Rush. So, I mean, yes, but it's fair to say was not playing well before he got hurt. But him not playing well compared to his previous history is still a hell of a lot better than Cooper Rush. So you got to be honest with yourself as well. They're a much better team, but it's fair to say that, yeah, especially coming off 2023 when he had a great regular season. He was not playing well.
3-5 he was last year with Dak, so not a tiny sample size, John. Not too bad. I mean,
well, I'm talking about the sample size compared to his good play.
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Compared to how many games he's played in his career, yeah.
yeah. And if you look at the year prior, he almost completed 70% of his passes for pull up 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That was his best season ever, really, from a statistical standpoint. And he fell back from that pretty dramatically. But A, it's tough to keep that pace up. B, yeah, they weren't as good as they have been in previous years. And C, it still ends in the same. He's a hell of a lot better than Cooper Rush. So to use how bad the Cowboys were after his injury to, assume that's going to continue with him is, look, I think the Eagles are a much better team. I just said that, but you're lying to yourself if you don't think the Cowboys are better with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're going to be better this year. I've actually been a little bit higher on the Cowboys, just in the sense that I think people are jumping the gun a little bit on the Commanders. I think everybody thinks they're going to be top of the NFC. I don't quite see that just yet. I know they've done some improvements, but I want to see Jaden Daniels in year number 2 and the way that they if they can stay in the party. John, it's one thing to show up at the party for the first time in 20 years. It's another thing to stay with the party for a little bit. All right. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I think they will, but I think the Cowboys have a chance to jump them this year. We'll see.
No,
I don't think so.
That'd be a disaster for Washington. I mean, anything's possible. Because the Cowboys,
Washington won what, 12 games last year?
Yeah.
So they go to 10?
Yeah,
11?
I think it's. I've said I think it's possible they win 10 or 11 games and be a better football team because they're, as you mentioned, they're playing a tougher schedule. They've been a bottom feeder for so long. They took people by surprise. People are going to adjust to Jaden Daniels, similar to what happened with C.J. Stroud in Houston. So I think it's going to be more difficult for them, but I think there's a chance they're better. Like everybody says they went to the NFC Championship game, which is literally true, but we all know they weren't the second best team in the NFC. They deserve credit for upsetting a very injured Detroit team. Still a game I thought they would lose, so they deserve credit for it, but coming into that week, there was a lot of concern because of the way that Jaden Daniels played that they could give the Eagles a run. And I said pretty strongly, they're not ready for that spot. And they weren't ready for that spot. And the Eagles boat raced them, 55-23, whatever it was. But they weren't the second best team in the NFC last year. We all know people follow all know they weren't the second best team, but you only got to win one game on one game day.
Sure.
And they got to that point. And now the revisionist historians, and there's far more of them who ignore context. Well, they got to get back to the NFC Championship game. I don't think they're the second best team in the NFC. I don't think they were the second best team in the NFC last year. They were probably the 4th or 5th overall, but things worked out for them. So it depends how you look at it.
We'll see how it goes. Last time the Eagles opened versus Dallas was 1970. They lost 17-7. I'll go Nick Sirianni route. What the hell does that have to do with the 2025 Eagles? Absolutely nothing, but just context for you guys to realize they have an open.
Absolutely, and Nick is right. Absolutely,
I know, but it's still fun to say. I mean, it's still a thing that is. I'm not saying it's going to affect the game. I'm not saying because they lost in 1970 they're going to lose this year. But that's the last time they've opened versus the Cowboys. It's good information for the great people of JAKIB Nation. So that's how it goes. John, then you move in. All right, a lot of primetime games for this team this year. You go into weeks 2 through 5, which are tough. You got KC, you got Tampa, you got the Rams. I mean, that's a tough. They got a tough early part to this schedule, John. I think the Cowboys week 1 are kind of a favorable opponent for this team to open up against. But then you go Chiefs, Rams, and Buccaneers, who they've had trouble with and who I think is a little bit of an underrated team coming into the year. What do you think of that next portion of the schedule right there?
Yeah, I've said it from the start. To me, that's the most difficult part of the schedule, the first 4 games, and I kind of include Dallas in there because they're Dallas, but really the next 3 at Kansas City on the road. Uh, Now the Eagles kind of broke me with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are descending mainly because of the way the Eagles destroyed them in the
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
I do too.
That might just be an optimal performance, and Kansas City goes back to being Kansas City.
I don't know,
Um,
man. I don't think they had the talent. I don't.
Well, I mean, they certainly didn't match up talent-wise with the Eagles last year. The Rams, I think, are the second best team in the NFC. Although I chuckled, I don't know who said it, but somebody, you might have saw it. Somebody said the Rams are set up to beat the Eagles. I'm like, what? How many? They gave up 1,000,000 yards rushing to the Eagles in 2
Well,
games.
they tried to do a couple of things to help that. I don't know if it's going to
Well,
work.
they're trying to nose tackle, but I think the linebackers are a bigger. That's a give and take, man. You don't want to take away from that pass rush, which is the strength.
Well, they
of
do got a good passer. They got Verse, they got Fisk, they signed Puna Ford as the nose tackle they signed. So I mean, they've done some things, but I'm with you. I don't think they're going to stop the run.
Well, my point is they have the best. They might have the best pass rush front 4 in football. And again, who Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata sold me on that. That's why I'm so high on the Rams pass rush. But again, the give and take part is you're trying to bring in Puna Ford to stop Saquon Barkley. Well, that's taken away from the pass rush.
Right.
Puna Ford isn't rushing the passer. Now, and again, I think it's more important. He might take up, 2 blockers because he's a good nose tackle. I'm not trying to dispute that part of it. But if you got Christian Roseboom, and they moved on, so they won't, but if you have a Christian Roseboom level linebacker, it's not going to matter. And I look at their linebackers. Troy Reader's still there, who amazing to me, still in the NFL. They have nothing. So how are they going to stop the Eagles running game? How are they set up to beat the Eagles? However, I think they might beat them early in the season, not long term, but that first 4 games is very difficult. And Tampa, we know their history in Tampa. Pray for a cool day in Tampa. Speaking of water and hydration.
What's cool though in September and Tampa Bay?
Well, I think
I mean, holy shit, it's hot.
Well, it's not the heat; it's the humidity. So
Yeah,
hope
right.
for a non-hurricane type of environment where the humidity is just seeping off of people. But that's out of your control to a large degree. But that's been a house of horrors, and maybe that works for the Eagles. Maybe they go into that game with something to prove because of how poorly they played down there recently. And remember, they weren't healthy, when they went down there. No AJ, no Devontae, no Lane. So that played a big factor into it as well.
Yeah.
But that's a brutal 3-game stretch. I think if you come out of that first 4 weeks 2-2, I think people will be very scared and very upset. But I think you're fine if you come out of that 2-2.
I agree. We'll see how it all goes. John, humans are a creature of habit. Certainly professional athletes are typically creatures of habit. How much do you think the difference, we got a Monday game, we got a Thursday game, we got a Saturday game, you got Sunday. It's like we're almost playing every single day of the week, which might stagger a little bit of the way that they can get into a rhythm. Do you think that has any impact on the team this year?
No, I would bring that. They've been through that a bunch during this run because they've been so high profile. They've been so many national TV windows, whether it's late Sunday, whether it's a Monday, Thursday, as you're pointing out, as everybody. They've done it so much over the previous number of years. I think they're used to it. It's never great. You never.
Also, no back-to-back home games this year, John. I mean, it's a weird.
You want to go.
God.
Yeah, that's a little weird. But, They only have 2 back-to-back road games, I think, as well. So, and one of them's at New York, which is basically a gimme or has been a gimme, and at Minnesota, which will be difficult, but maybe not. If JJ McCarthy stinks, maybe not. And then late, you have at Washington and at Buffalo, which will be, in theory, could be very big games. Certainly the Washington games that are going to be important, probably, at least the first one. Who knows where Buffalo is? Buffalo's going to win that division by Thanksgiving. Who knows if they're even playing at that point. And the Eagles,
it's a shoddy division.
Oh, it's the worst division. If there's one team I guarantee to win their division, it's Buffalo. That's number one on my list. Who's definitely going to win their division? Buffalo. There is no other possibility. Again, as long as they have Josh Allen. But I hope people know injuries are built into all these things. But that division is so bad. Miami's gotten much worse. The Jets are the Jets. They'll probably be a little bit better because Aaron Glenn will calm things down, at least from a disaster standpoint. But boy, the Jets are just a bad football team. And New England is maybe the least talented team. And Mike Vrabel will get them going back in a positive direction, but they just need years of talent development to get back into the equation. And I mean, to be honest, and I am by no means a Mitchell Trubisky fan. He's the backup in Buffalo. They probably win the division with Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
That's how bad that division is. So my guess would be the only reason Buffalo would be playing that game is they're going for the number 1 seed and they need it. And if they're not, they might not even, play their key players in that game. So when you're talking about those late games, you never know if they're going to be meaningful.
No doubt about it. John, keep moving on the schedule here. Week 5, we got Denver. I think they're a little bit of a slept-on team. I'm kind of with you where I'm not the biggest Sean Payton guy, but I do think they have a really good defense. Bo Nix did play better than I expected him to, and I think they've done some decent things. So they could be a sneaky, challenging game in Week 5. Do you think so too, or do you think that's an Eagles dub?
Well, I disagree with your assessment. I think they're one of the sexy teams. I think everybody's on board with Denver. I'm a little bit more of a Chargers guy in the AFC West. If anybody's going to compete with Kansas City, I think it's the Chargers more than the Broncos. The Chargers have the better quarterback. Well, I'm not buying Bo Nix. I'm just not. Not that he didn't have a good rookie year, and Sean deserves credit for that. But there's going to be adjustments. I think there's going to be adjustments to Jaden Daniels, so I'm damn sure I think there's going to be adjustments, and things are going to be difficult for Bo Nix, more difficult for Bo Nix. But they are better. They're not, for the past few years before last year, you could look at Denver and say, oh, that's a win. They have some good players and they're getting better. So it's not a team you can sleep on anymore. But I also think people are getting way too hyped up about the Denver Broncos. But I'm not a big Bo Nix guy, so a lot of it is tied to that.
I do think he's kind of a good fit with Peyton.
Well, yeah, I know a lot of people make the Drew Brees comparison.
No, I'm not saying he's Drew Brees. I'm just saying I think that style of quarterback works with Peyton, yeah.
A lot of people do, and he's got more movement skills, so he can move a little bit.
Yeah, he can.
But yeah, I think there's going to be some hiccups with him, and people adjusting. copycat league, but they're slow moving copycats. And once they figure something out that he doesn't do well. Now, I just mentioned Quinn Miners and McGlinchey's there. So they built up their offensive line a little bit. They signed J.K. Dobbins. I don't know if he'll stay healthy. They got some good players, but all NFL teams. What do I always say? You talk yourself into stuff. You start looking at people's rosters because everybody has good players. And Sean Payton's a good coach, but I think he's a little bit overrated, and I'm more of a Jim Harbaugh guy, at least in the short term. Now, Jim Harbaugh is going to get the most out of people for a very short shelf life, and then he's going to piss everybody off. But I think he's still in the honeymoon phase with the Chargers, so that's why I like the Chargers a little bit better.
I agree. Then you got Giants, Vikings, Giants. I think the Giants aren't going to be very good. What do you think of the Vikings? I know you like the team. I like the roster a lot. Tough to believe in J.J. McCarthy, but what do you like about that matchup?
It's all JJ. All JJ. That is a loaded team. Everywhere else, you can make an argument that they have the second best roster in the NFC behind the Eagles. But I know nothing about the quarterback. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's the quarterback whisperer. His reputation is going to be made or broke with JJ McCarthy. I have a lot of concerns simply because they didn't let him throw the ball at Michigan. And again, I just talked about Jim Harbaugh. If you have a top 10 pick in the draft, if you have a national champion quarterback, and they won the national champion, so he literally is, if you're not letting them throw the ball, something's wrong there. Something's wrong. But we'll see. I mean, he got hurt. That's another thing. Is he going to play 17 games? He gets hurt. He played one preseason game, got hurt. So many uncertainties surrounding J.J. McCarthy. And they traded for Sam Howell. That might be the Sam Darnold situation where J.J. might get hurt and Sam Howell plays and they go, oh, wow, he's better than I thought. Because O'Connell is very good. But it's so hard to project that team. I think that team could be the biggest contender to the Eagles and be a last place team. That's their window. Because if your quarterback can't play, doesn't matter how good everything else is, you're going to have a tough time winning football games. So I don't know what to think of that team. Could be the most difficult part of the Eagles schedule going out there because it's a very tough place to play. Or it could be a yawner, depending on what goes on with J.J. McCarthy.
I agree. John, week 9 bye. What do you think of it? Last year was an early bye, which I think kind of ended up helping the team. Now, it's not that was the exception, not the norm with an early bye. But what do you think of the week 9 this year?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I later the bye, the better. Doesn't matter. Oh, always later the bye, the better. So, yeah, it worked out for him last year, but nobody wanted a week 5 bye. They didn't want a week 5 bye. Just they happen to persevere. So it's a little bit later. It's about split, almost split. You can't split it perfectly. So it's about halfway. It's fine. Not great. But I always want the bye to be as late as possible. Just because you're going to have banged up people. And that's odds-wise, that's the best situation to be in. A little bit better than last year. And that to me is a positive. Now, if you want to make drastic changes like they did last year, probably not a positive, but I don't think they'll be in a situation where they're looking to make drastic changes this year.
John, after bye, you got Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, Chargers. That's a decent 5-game stretch right there. The Packers, assuming, I don't know what they're going to be, maybe a little bit better or about the same as they have been, 10-11 win team. Detroit Lions, I think they take a step back, but they won 15 games last year, so maybe the step back is still a 12-13 win team. Cowboys, we've talked about. Bears, I think, take a step forward this year. I know you're still a little iffy on them. We'll see what you think of them. And then Chargers, as you just talked about, you like them a little bit better than the Broncos. That's a decent 5-game stretch right there, John. Which sticks out to you?
Well, 3 road games. I mean, now the Eagles fans will certainly take over SoFi. So, but still you're traveling across country. So that's always an issue. And that'll be that's a night game, I believe. At Dallas has always been very difficult. But again, I don't think the Cowboys are as good as they have been. And at Lambeau is always difficult. Also a night game. So you have late window at Dallas, night game Green Bay, night game Chargers, but and Detroit in the midst of that is also a night game. So you talk about there aren't any Sunday 1:00ers in that stretch. And Chicago, I mean, they're going to be better. I mean, Ben Johnson is the coach. He's certainly going to be better than Matt Eberflus. He's certainly not going to impact the quarterback in a negative way like Matt Eberflus did. So they're going to be better, but they're not better than Green Bay. They're not better than Detroit, and they're not better than Minnesota. So, I mean, they're the exact opposite of the AFC East. What can the Bears do? Other than nobody looks at their reality and says, oh, they got Ben Johnson, they have Caleb Williams. Okay. You still got to play Green Bay twice. You still got to play Detroit twice. You still got to play Minnesota twice. So are they going to be more competitive? Probably. They're probably not going to fall apart like they fall. They were competitive early last season before they fell apart. But obviously that's a game. That's a home game. That is not a game that I would expect the Eagles to lose any stretch of the imagination. No way. And that's the Black Friday game.
Yeah. Next week they're at the Chargers out in LA. Monday night game. So they had Friday to Monday. So they kind of get a mini bye there with the Friday game. So they're off on Sunday. That's Sunday. That's Saturday and Sunday. And then they're off kind of the next. Well, not off. They're going to be prepping for the game, but they don't have a game until Monday. So that's a little bit of a nice break for them there.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people think, bye weeks and sort of mini bye weeks. I think a lot of people think you get extra time. You don't get extra time with the players. All that's collectively bargained. Now the coaches can work more.
No, I mean rest time though for the players and the coaches.
Yeah, rest time is very helpful for the players, and that's what they collectively bargain in. Those quality of life things. That's the only thing they win when it comes to CBA. But yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of success at SoFi against the Rams, and they take over that stadium. And the Chargers are even easier to take over than the Rams. It's easy to take over that stadium, and a bunch of fan bases do it. But as you can imagine, from that standpoint, it's almost not even a road game. But yeah, the travel is the pain in the ass part, because that's you're going across country, and that's always problematic. One of the few bad things about the Eagles, you remember, is that NFLPA report card where the team still does not like their traveling arrangements, which is bizarre with Jeffrey Lurie. And they tried to improve it to a certain degree, bought in a second charter to give people more room. But evidently they're not doing it as well as other teams. So maybe that's something to look at for Jeffrey.
No doubt about it. John, moving into the later half of the year now, you're in week 15. Raiders Obviously, I think that's one of the easier games in the schedule this year. Although they got a little bit better. Maybe they're a bit better.
I
this
see.
year.
I think they're one of the better teams, most improved teams on the schedule. Not that they're good, but they were so bad. And now you have Pete Carroll, who I don't care if he's 95, best, youngest looking 73-year-old or whatever he is.
It really is. That dude's impressive, man. 73 years old.
In the history of the world. But he's a legit NFL coach from the disasters they've had. And, they brought in Geno Smith, who's a professional quarterback. So they're going to be much better, much better. Are they going to beat the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field? No. But they used to be a disaster. I don't think they're going to be a disaster this year.
You like Geno? It's improvement from what they had, yeah.
I mean, it's light years over what they had. Geno's one of those guys that, I put him in the Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins category. For whatever reason, and maybe, he's a little bit different because those guys were consistent. He obviously had a very difficult time early in his career with the Jets. But again, it's the Jets. And then when he got his second chance later in his career, he's played very consistently. And he's just a good quarterback. Is he great? No. But he's just a good quarterback. And if you sleep on him, he's a guy who can hurt you. If you believe into that fan base nonsense of this guy doesn't win a Super Bowl, he can't win a Super Bowl, he doesn't win a Super Bowl, he's the guy that can gouge you for 350 yards, and you're looking up and go, how did they lose to that team? Well, they got a good quarterback. He's one of those guys. Which to me, people don't respect enough because there's only very few really elite quarterbacks. And then there's a bunch of second tier guys. And those are the Carrs, the Cousins, the Genos. I think Sam Darnold joined that group, similar to Geno, obviously, later in his career. But yeah, they're going to be much better with him playing quarterback.
Then you go in, John, those last three games. Got Commanders twice, Bills in between them. We've talked about that, but what do you think of the two Washington games late in the year there?
Well, I think it'll probably decide the NFC East. Maybe the first one, maybe not the second one. But those, and potentially both. And you almost hope that because I hate those Week 18 games that don't mean anything, especially rivalry games. So yeah, I think those two games will decide the NFC East, and the first one is down there in whatever it's called now. It's not FedEx anymore. And then Week 18 is here. I don't think the Eagles are with that schedule. I don't think they're winning 14 games. So let's say they're at 11 or 12 and Washington's at 10 or 11. Those two games will decide the NFC East.
I think the Eagles are going to win. I think the Eagles are going to win the NFC East. I think they're going to win it by a couple games.
Well, all right. 2 decades.
13 wins for the Eagles. I could see 11 or 10 for the Commanders. I don't think that's crazy. I think that's probably realistic.
I got 11 or 12 and 10 or 11. And
where are the Cowboys you have under 10?
Yeah. And if it's that close, one game can turn it all.
That's true. That's true. What's your favorite game on the schedule or your favorite matchup? I know you don't really give a shit, but just your favorite matchup. What do you think is the most interesting matchup?
Rams. September 21st here, Lincoln Financial Field. And
Yeah.
and by the way, it's one of the few 1:00 games on the schedule.
Yeah, I guess they can't flex a game that early, right? Because that's
No.
a really good game.
Yeah. I think that's the best team in the NFC. Now again, Detroit's probably got more talent than the Rams, but they lost both coordinators. Minnesota might have more talent than the Rams, but they lost their quarterback, and they're starting a rookie with not a rookie, but because he missed his entire rookie season with an injury, which has never happened before, by the way, in the history of the draft, which is weird. First round pick missing an entire rookie season. So much uncertainty with those two teams. And I think the Rams they definitely gave the Eagles their toughest test during the playoffs. Definitely.
Snow game. How much do you think that mattered to snow? I think that was a big deal. Fucking snow game.
Well, I think if you would have told me there was going to be a snow game, I would have said, well, that's a big advantage for the Eagles. I mean,
the running team.
Yeah, I mean, well, not only the outdoor team, the Northeast team against the sunny SoFi Rams. I mean, everything would say that would be an Eagles advantage. Now, part of it is just that Matthew Stafford's not going to be wavered by anything. I mean, that dude's just nails, but he's not going to, it's not going to bother him. But yeah, I mean, it's not hard to point out that they gave the Eagles their toughest test. The Eagles persevered, won the game, but they had the ball where they had the ball with a chance to win it. And Jalen Carter saved the season. He did. That's what happened. So I don't know why so many people have a problem admitting what happened, especially because it ended so positively. Jalen Carter saved the season. But if he didn't, boy, we'd have a different offseason. You and I would have had a different offseason.
Very different offseason.
But
coulda, shoulda, woulda, if. I mean, everybody can play that game, especially in football.
Not everybody, The Washington Commanders fans can say that they were close, but they got destroyed. The Kansas City Chiefs got destroyed. The LA Rams didn't get destroyed. They actually played a pretty darn good game. And Jared Verse made me a fan of Jared Verse in that game by embracing all the hate and showing up and having fun with it and also performing. I wish I could take you guys into the locker room and let Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata give you their thoughts on Jared Verse. That dude's a hell of a player.
Yeah, he is. He's
And we'll see,
player.
Young guys, you never know with young guys, does he buy some of the hype? Does he have that extra oomph to keep getting better and better? We got to see. Just like we got to see with Quinion and Cooper here. We got to see how they handle it. But when those guys talk that highly of a player, it means something to me because, there's no reason for them to.
John, no repeat NFC East winner since 2004. You think that breaks this year?
Well, I'm an odds guy, so I'm betting
You're picking the commies to win.
I mean, if I'm an odds guy. I think it'll probably, it doesn't mean the Eagles won't be the better team. It means, hey, they have a tougher road. They'll be in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, 20 years. Eagles have the most talented team. They could certainly do it. but until I see it, I got to see it. They should win. I think they have the higher upside, but it's been what it is, man. I think you'll know after the first 4 games from the standpoint of that's the toughest stretch. And if they're 3-1 or 4-0 after the first 4 games, oh, they're going to run away with it. They're 2-2, they're fine. If they're 1-3, oh boy, hold on. Hold on.
Remember that early season's interesting because how much time do you think is the defense is going to need to get you know what I mean? A lot of new players there, a lot of young guys there. That's my question. Earlier in the year, I think the offense is going to have to be great early for them to win some of those games early on.
Seamless, the defensive transition. I'm joking. Yeah.
Offensive transition should be as close to it as you can get. I know you got a new coordinator, but 10 of 11 starters coming back, and they're going to have to carry the water, I think, for the defense until the defense, gets acclimated.
Yeah, the only thing I'm interested with on the offense is how they play. Are they going to try to become more balanced, or are they just going to say, hey, stop it? That's what I'm most interested in. And I don't know the answer to that.
What do you think the floor is, John? Wins for the Eagles.
The floor?
Yeah.
Double digits.
I think so too.
Which is not as impressive as it once was. But, if they lose, if they win 10 games, I think that's a bad season, a bad regular season for them. I don't think it definitely would be.
Yeah, it would be. They fired coaches after 11 wins. So I know it looked obviously the way it did at the end of the year, but still, that's part of. I mean, look, we talked about the golden era, John. We talked about this is what the expectation is now. I mean, when you have that type of expectation, 10 wins isn't going to cut it.
Well, 10, but I think the ending is more to do with it. I think Sugar Ray Leonard rules apply. I've always said that. Sugar Ray was great at boxing the last 30 seconds of a round for old school boxing fans. He would leave the people remembering. People are they remember what they see last. And you can go 2.5 minutes and save yourself and do the flurry in the last 30 seconds and he'd steal rounds that way. If you go 10-7 and get hot late and make a run to the NFC Championship game, say you're probably not going to win the Super Bowl if you're winning 10 games, and make a run to the NFC Championship game, I think everybody's fine. What killed them in 2023 was the ending, 1-7, and the blowout in the first round. So people remember what they see last. And I think how it ends will be determined if there will be scapegoats, not just a pure record.
Agreed. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We'll get to our next commercial break. Good schedule rundown. We haven't looked at the schedule in a while. So as we get closer to training camp, I did want to kind of refresh people on what the schedule is going to look like this year. No back-to-back home games is tough. I think the first 4 weeks is one of the toughest stretches. And post-bye week, you have an interesting 5-game period as well. So I think it's a decently favorable schedule for the Eagles. Nothing too great, nothing too crappy. So kind of right in the middle on it. But a good schedule nonetheless and a challenging schedule. So we will see how the Eagles do this year. With that, let's get our next commercial break in. Do we have any super chats? Let me make sure I got everybody. Trenton, what's up, Trenton? Good to see you in here, brother. He said, Smitty scored twice on Surtain as a rookie in 2021. I remember that. You remember that one huge grab he had over Surtain in the back of the end zone? That was an incredible catch. That was in Denver, I believe.
Devontae's a hell of a player. So is Patrick Surtain. I wouldn't get too worked up.
Very, very good.
Yeah. If you're a cornerback, you're getting beat. Get used to it.
Yeah. Too many good players. Good stuff, Trenton. Appreciate your super chat, brother, and appreciate everybody for being in here today. Hit that like button. When we come back, we got a couple more conversations to have. All right. I want to talk Kevin Patullo. I just talked about how the offense has to be seamless early to help that defense early on. We'll talk about what that looks like when we get back here on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand.
Thank you.
We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone and Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give us follows on X at Zander Krause and at JF McMullen. We appreciate everybody being here in the middle of the offseason. It's July 8th. We're getting close to training camp, a couple weeks out from training camp, and then 58 days away from the banner drop. So getting very close to the Eagles opener versus the Dallas Cowboys. We'll keep you guys up to date. We'll keep you guys posted, and we'll keep you guys entertained with content all the way up until that point. We appreciate your guys' viewership as it keeps us on the air, your likes, your super chats, your comments, and your shares, everything you guys do. We appreciate you. Johnny Mac, next topic I want to close out with. We got about 17 minutes left on the show today on a Tuesday edition. Kevin Patullo will add what to the Eagles offense, John?
Comfort. I think Jalen Hurts is very comfortable with him. And I think it showed in the spring. I think it was by far, and I mean by far, the sharpest spring I've ever seen Jalen Hurts have. And I think, part of it is that narrative has been there since he was in college, different offensive coordinator, different play caller every year. Kevin's been here since 2021. Yes, different role, passing game coordinator, associate head coach, but he's been there the whole time. And he knows Jalen and vice versa. And I think you saw it this spring, and I think he's going to have a much better personal season than he had last year. Last year was probably his worst spring. Now, you'll say, well, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, so I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. Again, the odds are probably against that, but individually, I think Jalen Hurts is going to have his best season. He's comfortable. He's calm. He knows the offense. He's collected. And just he's getting better at every part of the processing aspect of the position. And again, I know how it's graded and how everybody does it, and I know I'm swimming upstream, but personally, I think he's going to have his best season. Doesn't mean he's going to win the Super Bowl. It means he's going to perform his job the best that he ever has. That's my expectation for Jalen Hurts, and a lot of that has to do with being around Kevin Patullo for so long.
Yeah, well, we share in that expectation for Jalen Hurts this year. I think he will be that. I've predicted he gets back to the MVP conversation this year. And I don't know if you think that. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. That's where I think about Jalen. But will comfort be enough, John? I mean, you're talking about a team that's going to have to evolve. You're talking about a team that relied heavily on the run game last year. Maybe they can do that again, or maybe they have to become a new version of that offense. Is comfort enough, or do they need an infusion of ideas?
Well, that's why I'm so interested to see how they play. Are they going to just run it back and say, all right, nobody stopped it. Let's keep it going as long as we can. Or are they going to try to be more balanced? I can't answer that question right now. I think in general, I think they're going to have to throw it more because they have a more difficult schedule. They will be in positions to need to throw the ball more in the fourth quarter. So I think ultimately part of that will just be a natural evolution of being in a position where they have to pass the ball, not that they want to pass the ball. So I think that, if you think about Jalen Hurts, and I'll pull it up real quick. 432, 460, 538, 361. That's how many times he threw the football last year. 538 in 2023. That is an enormous disparity. Had to throw it more in 2023. So to me, that's the most interesting part of the Eagles offense. And as long as they have Saquon Barkley, I think they're going to ride him until they can't ride him anymore. Like, I don't think it's going to be 361 passes. I think it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be harder. So I think it goes up a little bit. I don't think it goes up to 538. But I think Jalen's going to be more effective in what he does, which is a more nebulous standard, I know. But he's never been a great practice player. We've talked about this with BLG, and he'll say the same thing. And he's there every day, and I'm there every day. And everybody who's there every day will tell you he's never been a great practice player. Part of that is, as I often point out, is not even his fault, because so much of his game is predicated on off-schedule stuff. You don't get to see that in practice because they're going to blow the whistle. So as soon as he starts to blush and extend the play, they blow the whistle. That might turn into a freaking touchdown in a real game.
Right.
So he's never been a great practice player, which is not that meaningful. In the spring, he was a great practice player. Now, I know some people say, you didn't throw an interception in practice. That's not necessarily a good thing. Elliot, if you're listening, stop it. It's not necessarily a good thing. Practice is designed to stretch and test things and say, hey, can I get away with this? Can I not? Do I have to scale that back? Being so cautious that you're not throwing an interception in practice is probably not a good thing. Not probably. It's not a good thing. And again, that's why you have to, it doesn't have to be me, but if you follow this stuff and you want to be informed, make sure you're following somebody who understands how to watch an NFL practice. So, and hopefully we'll have PLG tomorrow if he's not on vacation, which everybody's on vacation, but, and I'll check in after the show, but what, I'll ask him again and you can hear from him. He's never been a great practice player. In the spring, very small sample size, only 3 open practices. He was a great practice player. I think that's a positive development. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't matter, but he's great.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a positive development. Maybe shows that you're right about the comfort of Kevin Patullo. Jalen's been with him for a long time, and I know he's had a lot of different play callers and a lot of different offensive coordinators and even a lot of different quarterback coaches, but Kevin has been there the whole time. So, or at least since he's been in Philly. So maybe that is a big advantage, John. It's a good way of looking at it by you. I don't know if it'll be enough, but I'm confident that I think it's Jalen's offense, honestly, John. Like, how much terminology you think is different this year, if any? Remember the comment, obviously the famous comment.
Not much. We asked Kevin about that. He's keeping it very similar for that reason. So that's probably part of it. And last year was a complete upheaval and complete change, which is why he was uncomfortable in the spring. So he's done that purposefully. Yeah, I think he's set up to have a big season. And I think he knows he didn't up to his level, his standard. He didn't have his best season last year. So I think he's very hyper-focused on getting back to his personal standard, which he can't get through because essentially it's perfection. But so I think that factors into it as well.
What have you learned about Kevin Patullo? You've been covering a team since he's been here. Anything you've learned about him? Anything off the that people might not know about him that you've learned, or has he been really pretty reserved his whole time here? I haven't had much time to talk to him.
No, I've talked to him probably 5-6 times over the years. His daughter's a tremendous golfer.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. He's been Nick Sirianni's right-hand man from day one. I think a lot of people, I've talked about that on this show, so people who listen know it, but I don't think a lot of people knew that for a long time. He was the one who was going to be the head coach when Nick got COVID during 2021. He even had a press conference because he was scheduled to be the head coach and Nick was able to recover, but shockingly. Boy, talk about stuff in the rearview mirror. I'm not gonna go down. Boy, did we do some stupid shit as a society with COVID. But I digress. Yeah. But in Kevin's standpoint, he was always very important. I think one of the interesting things I learned out last year into the Super Bowl is, he's the guy that tells Nick he's being a dick. If Nick's being a dick, because I think a lot of people think that Nick doesn't have the ability to be hard on players. He's kind of a dick.
Yeah, I could see that. That doesn't surprise me at all.
And Kevin's the one who calls him out if he's going too far. And I asked him that when he got the job and he had the press conference with us this spring, and I asked him, how does that change now that you're not the associate head coach? Because he had pointed, he gave a great example when they were down in New Orleans. Doug Nussmeier, who's the quarterback, his son is the quarterback for LSU. And he wanted to go to the game, but he didn't want to ask Nick because he was like, I don't want to be that guy. I'm a first year coach here. He didn't want to, say, hey, I want to take time out from the big NFL game tomorrow, go see my son play. And Kevin's like, it's just ask him. What do you mean? Go watch your son. And, he didn't want to ask him. And Kevin went to Nick and said, dude, he wants to go watch his son. Which, again, I was all the way back to my first tangent about, living your life.
Right.
And ultimately, he went to watch his son, and they won the game. So anyway, that's sort of a little behind the scenes of Kevin's role. But, big part of the offense, always part of the game planning process. So that it's not like it's new. The game planning process has been a collaboration since, day one. And he's been a big part of that. So now basically the only difference is the buck stops with him. And it never has before. So everybody puts the game plan together. But, if there's should we run this? Should we run that? The buck stops with him. So that's the change. And we'll see. That you don't know until you see him do it. Does he have a good feel for it? Does he have a Shane Steichen feel for it? Or does he have a Sean Desai feel for it defensively? Probably going to be somewhere in the middle. But Kellen was somewhere in the middle, and they won the Super Bowl. So talent is more important than that kind of stuff.
Yep. We'll see how it shakes out there. One super chat left here to go in the last couple minutes of the show. Fredo, what's up, Fredo? Good to see you, brother. He says, fellas, Makuba looking small for his safety with a puzzled face emoji or something, whatever that is.
Yeah, he's small. I mean, we've talked about that. They're very small on defense as a whole, not just Makuba. Hasn't hurt them, hasn't affected them. My best explanation of that is, and I've said it a couple times, I'll say it again. The Eagles' defense was better than the Eagles' offense last year by every metric, right up until the Super Bowl. Number one defense. But the Eagles' defense could not stop the Eagles' offense because they get bullied to shit.
Right.
Nobody plays that way. That's the luxury the Eagles have. Until somebody figures that out, I don't think it matters. Will somebody figure it out? Baltimore's close, and the Eagles persevered and handled themselves well. But they don't really have the offensive line the Eagles do. So, and to me, as I said, when you talk about offensive lines, it takes years to build them. So if anybody figures it out today because they're listening to this show, it's going to take them 4 years to do it. So the Eagles are in a good position. The closest we never got to see it is Detroit. Because they have the running backs, they had the offensive line. And that would have been interesting. But, too many injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Washington got them. And they're going to play each other this year. So that'll be an interesting game. Regular season. So obviously not going to matter as much. But Detroit could take advantage of them. And we'll see how if they can. They don't have Ben Johnson anymore. But with their offensive line and their running backs, they could take advantage of it. We'll see if they do.
No doubt. Fredo, thank you for the super chat, brother. Good show today, everybody. Appreciate everybody for being here. Hit the like button for us. Got a good crowd in here, as we always do. Middle of July, training camp, couple weeks out. 58 days out from the banner drop, the season opener versus the Dallas Cowboys. Eagles should start 1-0, hopefully, over the Cowboys. We'll see how it all goes. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here in the middle of the summer?
Middle of the summer, but we're getting through it together. So I appreciate everybody checking in. Hopefully we'll get our buddies Mike Gill, BLG. Everybody's on vacation. Everybody's trying to get their vacation in before training camp starts. But we're here for you, man. You got to give us credit for that.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Johnny Mac, good show, brother. We appreciate you doing it today. We will catch up with you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365. Thank you, brother.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right, there's Johnny Mac, John McMullen here on Birds 365. Great show today. Great already. 2 great shows coming off the 4th of July. You had off on Friday. So, getting back into the swing of things. And now we're really getting close to everybody. I mean, training camp is so close, I can almost taste it, for crying out loud. That's a pause, but it's getting close for sure. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what this team looks like this year. And should be a good year. I think it should be a really good year. I thought John's optimistic on Patullo, which is a good thing. So, we'll talk about a little bit of that. What do you guys think of the schedule conversation? I'm curious to hear what you guys think of that schedule. It's like an interesting schedule. No back-to-back home games. Start is a little tough. That 5-week period after the bye week, I think, is a little tough. I think John's right about the Bills probably not going to get their best effort because they'll probably have won their division so easily. Now, maybe they're fighting for the 1 seed in the AFC. But what do you guys think of the schedule this year for the Philadelphia Eagles coming into the 2025 year, a couple weeks out now from training camp to begin, under 2 months? So should be a good one, though. I think the Eagles are going to be really good. I really do. I think they're going to be really good again. Get a dead chat right now. Anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? Click through, get this real quick. Here we go. Hi, Dom. What's up, brother? He says tough, but I think we'll be fine. Yeah, I think so too. I don't think it's that tough, honestly. Chris says we have a tough schedule. I don't know if I think it's tough, Chris. I think it's like interesting. It's like, it's not like I don't look at it and say, oh, what a gauntlet. Like I don't say that, but I also don't look at it and say, oh, that's nice. Oh, that, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's weird. Like the no back-to-back home games is weird. There's no crazy travel stretch, which I think is a good thing. They're home a lot toward the end of the year, which is a good thing. So, yeah, no back-to-back home games is tough. Taking my Xander time dump. Brian, get after it. Do what you got to do. Better than the Giants. SmackDown, good stuff. Keys checks in. Starting 2-2 without Nakobe and Jihad. 2-2 wouldn't be awful. Who do you got the losses to, Keys? Cam Newton calling JD5 a one-hit wonder is funny. Did he? You might not be wrong. We'll see. We have a bunch of mini-buys. Yeah, Twiz, we do, because we got so many games all over the weeks, all over the map, all over the map. Josh Prout, what's up, Josh? All the other teams look at Eagles on their schedule and say, damn, that's a tough one. Well, there's no doubt about that. Well, we care about how it looks for the Eagles. We will get everybody's Super Bowl effort. That's very true, Kevin. Very true, brother. He says losses to the Rams and the Bucs. Rams are going to be tough. Bucs are going to be tough. So you got to start in 2-0 and then to losing 2. Cowboys, Chiefs wins. We're not losing to Dallas. Hi, Dom. There's 0% chance we lose to Dallas on the opener. I don't think they're ready to compete with us in that opener. Wow, Texas T. I think that's what I had. 13-4. I think that's what I had. Now granted, that is optimistic, but me and you are both optimistic on the team this year. I think they're going to be really good. 13-4 is definitely, it would be a very successful regular season. I mean, I think that would be a very successful regular season. But at the end of the day, I think we're all far more focused on the playoffs. Like if we go 13-4 and get bounced in the divisional, who the hell cares? I'd rather go 11-6 and go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, M. Reyes 14-3 in a repeat. Leave it to M. Reyes. He has to one up everybody. If M. Reyes doesn't have the most optimistic take, he will alter his take to become the most optimistic take. M. Reyes, I love you, pal. I appreciate M. Reyes. He's a good dude. 13-4 is best case scenario. That's if our defense doesn't skip a beat from last year. I don't know. I think they could be 13-4 without the defense not skipping a beat. There's a dude that says 17-0. I haven't seen him. Ian East, 12 wins. Not bad. Not bad. Oh, SmackDown. I meant to ask John about that. How do you feel the fullback game will be? I don't know what they're going to do with that. They got some options there. That Harrison Bryant dude can play. They got Ben Van Sumeren. I mean, I don't know. You heard even Jeffrey Lurie bring up maybe using a fullback. So, hey, maybe they revive it this year, but we'll see. Sills ain't trying to hear the Jihad Campbell talk. 11-13 wins, Tony. It's a good ballpark. What's up, Pimps? Vulnerable. What's up, brother? 12-14, pretty good. 20-0 until proven otherwise, Twiz says. Good to see you. Good to see it. Twiz is optimistic. But, all right, everybody, I got to run. I appreciate it. Not much Xander time today, but we will get back to it once the training camp comes. We're probably going to have hours Xander times again, so we'll get back. And I appreciate all of you guys being here. Hit that like button for me. What do we got? 13 wins this year, 14, 12, 10, 8, 9, 15. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. I do think Jalen Hurts gets back to MVP form this year. I do think that. All right. So I appreciate all of you guys being here. Hit that like button on the way out. See you next time, everybody. Love all you guys.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.